So students, then Mr. Sherlock Holmes talked about the appearance of Mr. Mortimer. He was a very tall, thin man with a long nose like a beak, which jutted out between two keen grey eyes set closely together and sparkling brightly from behind a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He was clad in professional but rather slovenly fashion, for his frock coat was dingy and his trousers frayed. Though young, his long back was already bowed, and he walked with a forward thrust of his head and a general air of peering benevolence. As he entered, his eyes fell upon the stick in Holmes' hand, and he ran towards it with an exclamation of joy. "I am so very glad," said he. "I was not sure whether I had left it here or in the shipping office. I would not lose that stick for the world." So students, then he said that Mr. Mortimer was a very tall, thin man with a long nose. तो उन्होंने अपीयरेंस के बारे में बात की है कि वो कोई लंबे पतले से आदमी थे, जैसे कि उन्होंने सोचा था कि एज ही हैड एक्सपेक्टेड अ टिपिकल कंट्री प्रैक्टिशनर फाइन, तो वो एक लंबे से पतले से आदमी थे जिनका नाक भी काफ़ी लंबा था, एंड ही हैड ग्रे आइज, कीन ग्रे आइज, उसकी गहरी ग्रे कलर की आइज थी जो कि स्पार्क कर रही थी गोल्ड रिम्ड ग्लासेस के पीछे से। दैट मीन्स उसने गोल्ड फ्रेम, जो गोल्डन फ्रेम के स्पेक्टिकल्स पहने हुए थे। ही वॉज क्लैड, क्लैड मीन्स ड्रेस्ड। सो उसकी जो ड्रेसअप था दैट वॉज अनटाइडी फैशनड, वो ओल्ड टाइप फैशन के उसने कपड़े पहने थे। फॉर हिज फ्रॉक कोट वॉज डिंकी मीन्स हिज फ्रॉक कोट, दैट मीन्स ओल्ड फैशनड फ्रॉक कोट वॉज डल, दैट मीन्स उसने डल टाइप के कपड़े पहने हुए थे। दो यंग, हिज लॉन्ग बैक वॉज ऑलरेडी बाउट, वो एक यंग पर्सन था पर लंबा होने के कारण उसकी जो लंबी पीठ थी वो आगे की तरफ झुकी हुई थी और वह आगे की तरफ झुक के चल रहा था विद अ फॉरवर्ड थ्रस्ट ऑफ हिज हेड एंड अ जनरल एयर ऑफ बेनेवलेंस, एंड ही वॉज अ काइंड हार्टेड पर्सन. Then Mr. Mortimer came there. When he saw the stick in the Holmes' hands, he ran towards it. He was glad to see his stick. He said that he was not sure about the stick, that whether he had left it there or in the shipping office. He said that he did not want to lose the stick at any cost. "A presentation, I see," said Holmes. So students, then Mr. Sherlock Holmes wanted to make sure whether it was a presentation stick. So he asked from Dr. Mortimer. "Yes, sir." "From Charing Cross Hospital?" Then Mr. Mortimer was agreed with him. He said, "Yes, sir." Then the next question of Sherlock Holmes was, "Did he get it from Charing Cross Hospital?" "From one or two friends there on the occasion of my marriage." Dear, that's bad," said Holmes, shaking his head. Dr. Mortimer blinked through his glasses in mild astonishment. "Why was it bad?" "Only that you have disarranged our little deductions. Your marriage, you say?" "Yes, sir, I married, and so left the hospital, and with it all hopes of a consulting practice. It was necessary to make a home of my own." Come, we are not so far wrong after all," said Holmes. "And now Dr. James Mortimer." So students, then Mr. Mortimer said that he got it from his friends on the occasion of his marriage. Mr. Sherlock Holmes was surprised to hear that on the marriage he got this stick, क्योंकि जो मिस्टर शेरलॉक होम्स थे उन्होंने जो अपनी डिडक्शंस की थी उसमें से उनकी जो डिडक्शन थी वो ये थी कि शायद उन्होंने एक कंट्री प्रैक्टिस के लिए अपने हॉस्पिटल को छोड़ा होगा और हॉस्पिटल को छोड़ते टाइम उन्हें एज अ प्रेजेंटेशन मिली होगी ये स्टिक. फाइन। पर जब मॉर्टिमर बताते हैं कि उनके फ्रेंड्स ने उनकी वेडिंग पे गिफ्ट की है तो वो थोड़ा सा मतलब सरप्राइज हो जाते हैं। वो कहते हैं कि मुझे तो लगा था कि शायद हॉस्पिटल छोड़ने पर आपको प्रेजेंट मिला होगा, फाइन। But as then Mr. Sherlock Holmes said that his rest of the deductions were करेक्ट। तो यहाँ पे उन्होंने बोला है वी आर नॉट सो फार रॉन्ग, मतलब हम सारे तरीक़ों से, मेरी सारी ऑब्जर्वेशन गलत नहीं है। आफ्टर ऑल सेड होम्स एंड नाउ डॉक्टर जेम्स मॉर्टिमर। अब जो डॉक्टर जेम्स मॉर्टिमर हैं वो नेक्स्ट अपनी बात को कंटिन्यू करते हैं। मिस्टर सर, मिस्टर अ हम्बल MRCS। Students, here the meaning of MRCS means Member of the Royal College of Surgeon of England. So, Member of the Royal College of Surgeons. Fine. Then, and a man of precise mind, evidently. An amateur in science, Mr. Holmes, a picker-up of shells on the shores of the great unknown ocean. I presume that it is Mr. Sherlock Holmes whom I am addressing or not. So students, here the word man of precise mind means a man of accurate mind. तो Mr. Mortimer बोलते हैं that you have an accurate mind. Fine. And then Mr. Mortimer praised Mr. Sherlock Holmes. He said that Mr. Sherlock Holmes is an astute observer. Here the sentence, a picker up of shells on the shores of the great unknown ocean. That means great unknown ocean में से मतलब shells को pick करना, that means किसी unknown information में से अपनी deductions को निकालना, ये तो सिर्फ मिस्टर शेरलॉक होम्स ही कर सकते हैं। ये बात मिस्टर मॉर्टिमर ने बोली। एंड मिस्टर मॉर्टिमर आस्क्ड द मैन दैट is he talking to Mr. Sherlock Holmes? No, this is my friend Dr. Watson. But Mr. Sherlock Holmes said that Mr. Mortimer was addressing his friend Watson. क्योंकि स्टूडेंट्स मिस्टर मॉर्टिमर को नहीं पता था कि जिनसे वो बात कर रहे हैं वो मिस्टर शेरलॉक होम्स हैं। तो उसने बोला कि जो मतलब जिसने ये ऑब्जर्वेशन की है एज आई थिंक दैट ही इज मिस्टर शेरलॉक होम्स, पर जो उसके सामने था ही वॉज डॉक्टर वैटसन। फाइन। तो मिस्टर शेरलॉक होम्स ने बताया कि ये मेरे फ्रेंड डॉक्टर वैटसन है। ग्लैड टू मीट यू सर, आई हैव हर्ड योर नेम मैंशनड इन कनेक्शन विद दैट ऑफ योर फ्रेंड। You interest me very much, Mr. Holmes. Sherlock Holmes waved our strange visitor into a chair. You are an enthusiast in your line of thought, I perceive, sir, as I am in mine, said he. Holmes was silent, but his little darting glances showed me the interest which he took in our curious companion. I presume, sir, said he at last, that it was not merely for the purpose of acquaintanceship you had come here last night and again today. So students, then Mr. Mortimer said that he had heard about his friend Dr. Watson also. Then Mr. Mortimer met Dr. Watson and Mr. Sherlock Holmes made his visitor sit in a chair and praised him. So students, Holmes was silent, but the way he looked at our visitor, at our companion, clearly meant that he was watching him curiously. I presume, sir, now Mr. Sherlock Holmes said to our visitor that मुझे लगता है सर कि आप सिर्फ यहाँ पे जान पहचान बढ़ाने के लिए दोबारा नहीं आए, कि आप कल भी आए और आज फिर से दोबारा सिर्फ हमसे जान पहचान करने के मकसद से नहीं आए, आपका यहाँ आने का पर्पस कुछ और है। सो मूविंग ऑन द नेक्स्ट पेज। No sir, no, though I am happy to have had the opportunity of doing that as well. I came to you, Mr. Holmes, because I recognized that I am myself an unpractical man, and because I am suddenly confronted with a most serious and extraordinary problem, recognizing as I do that you are one of the highest experts in Europe. So students, then Mr. Mortimer said that he has recently faced a serious an extraordinary problem, and he wanted the help of Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Again, he praised Mr. Sherlock Holmes that he was one of the highest experts in Europe. Fine, just a little, said Holmes. I think, Dr. Mortimer, you would do wisely if without more ado you would kindly tell me plainly what the exact nature of the problem is in which you demand my assistance. So students, in the last paragraph, Mr. Sherlock Holmes said that Mr. Mortimer should tell him exactly what kind of help he wanted from Mr. Sherlock Holmes. Ado means trouble. Without any trouble, without any hesitation, Mr. Mortimer should tell him what the exact problem is and what kind of assistance he wanted from Mr. Sherlock Holmes.